Welcome to Dissecting the 80s. I am Trip Lano, one half of the Mega Podcasting Powers. And with me, as always, is the only Bette Davis enthusiast that I know, the Macho Man Drew.
Andrew Lano. And really? I feel like I'm surprised you don't have like one friend who's just like, oh yeah, I like her.
I would wager that most people that I am friends with don't know who that is, would be my guess. Like, other than the song, and be like, oh yeah, I assume that's a person.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
Like,
I don't have a very diverse friend group in terms of straight versus not straight.
Not even straight. It's like, here, feel free to bleep this if you'd like.
Okay.
I feel like if you were like, oh, Angie really likes Bette Davis, I'd be like, yeah, I see that.
No, I don't. I mean, not that I know of, anyway. Anyway, we are completing the back half of the very, the kind of thing that is just really taken off culturally by storm. Andrew programs the show in the month of April, APTSITMOA. It's on everybody's lips. It's on everybody's Twitter fingers. It's the
new Met Gala.
APTSITMOA. Yeah, it's APTSITMOA, baby, and nobody can get enough. So we're here on the back half. We're doing Watcher in the Woods for thematic coherence, I guess. With
Yeah,
Bette Davis
I was like, I wanted something else to like go. I knew we were doing Mommy Dearest, and I thought Bette Davis. Why not? I'd never seen it before.
Yeah, I was giving it some shit at the end of the previous episode, but I liked it more on this watch, and I'm wondering if I just watched this very late at night. Which is when I watch most of my Halloween stuff.
Definitely more enjoyable than I was expecting. Because the way you talked about it, I was like, oh, it's probably because you said it was boring. I think was the way you.
Yeah.
You didn't hate it. You were just like, it's boring.
Yeah. Which is the kiss of death for doing podcast movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we watched Watcher in the Woods, and you know what that means?
We gotta go back. We gotta go dissect the 80s. It's your Disney horror movie. Something about your Disney horror movie.
When the mega powers explode.
I'm talking about the 80s. Oh, yeah.
Great Scott!
Cream of the crop. Oh, yeah.
Mega powers, yeah!
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
So something that's very interesting with this movie in doing the research for it, one, we're going to have to talk about I hope you watched those alternate endings or at least skim through them. Okay, so we're going to definitely talk about that, but I'll wait till the end for that. But it's very interesting, 2022 versus 1980, and you think like, oh man, things are so different now. How different things are, and how much the things evolved. And in reading about this movie, it's like they put it out, people hated it, and they just were like, never mind, and they took it back and fixed it. And I was like, oh man, like the world was so much bigger then, right? Like in the
although I thought test screenings like existed back then, or was that not were they not widely used then? In 80.
I think they did. I think the answer is probably a little bit of that, and also the critical reviews were so mean to this. All the New York press was really mean to it. So I think that's probably part of it. And I say mean to it as if this is like something that needs protecting, like it's a fragile baby. But the reviews were very harsh. But I was like, oh man, you really couldn't do that today. And I was like, wait, didn't they do exactly this with Cats? And they pushed out some like update to the video file like 48 hours later.
Yeah.
Was it the hands or something?
I don't remember. I've not seen Cats yet.
Okay. I watched about an hour of it with commentary from another movie podcast that I enjoy, and even with the commentary, I was like, I can't watch this. I can't do any more of this.
Yeah.
This is too much.
It's just they tried to add a lot of plot to Cats, and the point is that there isn't plot. It's Cats hell.
Right.
To quote Angela Weber, it's Cats hell.
But yeah, so I was like, oh, the more things change, the more they say the same. They are like, oh, we'll just update this movie 48 hours later, and the version you saw doesn't exist.
Which I have to say, like, is kind of cool that like that's how movie technology works in the year 2020 or 21 or whatever. It's just cool that's what movie technology is. It's like, please disregard that last email.
Yeah. Although I will say there is a little bit about it to me that's like, I always think the worst version of it is going to happen. And it's like that whole thing that happened where Disney, and I didn't watch the show, so I don't have any idea of the context. the Winter Soldier show, I think that's what it's called, but whatever it is, it does the Winter Soldier Captain America thing that they did. They like put out the show and people watched it and generally seemed to like it. And then months later, somebody was tweeting like, "Hey, this scene's been edited and all the blood's not in it anymore." And then Disney did like a, "Oops, we're sorry. Like we didn't. That was just something weird happened with the file." And it's like, well, you did it. Like, why did you make two versions? So I always think of this like, they're gonna put out, like say, this movie Morbius, like if there's a scene in it that everyone's making fun of that movie in general, but if there was a particular scene people are making fun of, like they could just go in and be like, we're going to just cut this scene out and then it's back in theaters instantaneously, which seems very weird to me.
I did not hear that about Falcon and Winter Soldier because I did not watch that show. It seemed more fighty than like weird cool shit, which is what I liked about WandaVision. So I was like, I'll skip Falcon for now.
I did see that my boy Wyatt Russell was in it, which made me intrigued, but not intrigued enough to watch it. Kurt's kid that I was going on and on about recently.
Oh,
like
right.
How he's got like a Kurt energy in a good way.
But I didn't know there was like one scene in Morbius that everyone was making fun. I knew everyone's shitting all over that movie.
I just pulled that out of my ass.
Okay.
Like I don't know that there's. I was just like Morbius was a movie everybody was making fun of, and it was just like if there was one scene that they could just be like and snip, I just could see that happen.
I feel weirdly vindicated that everyone hates that movie because growing up, you had a binder of superhero trading cards, and it was like it wasn't the A tier. But like I get this was
it was everybody. It was they were trading cards, so you got everybody. Like the A tier was there, but also there's a Z tier.
But I just mean I guess this was the late '90s, so there was no A tier because people didn't give a shit the way they do now.
It was based off the X-Men. Is like what that came. Those cards came from me. I really liked the X-Men cartoon series, and then I wanted to. So I think the A tier of those cards would have been the original that TV lineup of X-Men: Cyclops, Wolverine, Jean Grey.
But it was. You also had like really like deep cut weird ones, which is
because it was just a pack of cards. Yeah.
So that's how I've been able to like impress nerds because you had this book. So like I am very aware of this like selection of 30 or so superheroes.
Yeah.
Like the Goblin Queen.
And when you say book, it wasn't like a book.
It was a binder.
Like a binder with cards in it. Okay. Yeah, just so people know.
Yeah, it was a binder of trading cards, and one of them was Morbius. And I remember it was cool. He was like hiding up in the shadows above a thing, and it was like spooky looking. It was like, ooh, this is a scary card. And it was like, he's a vampire. And I was like, that's cool. And then I saw that they were making a movie, and I was like, oh, awesome. That sounds rad. And then I was like, oh, it's Jared Leto. Oh, I get.
I don't care.
God damn it. I was like, is it too late that like maybe they'll change? I was like, no, it comes out next year. And then it came out, and everyone hates it. And I was like, cool. I'm glad because this could have been cool.
It's funny. You started talking about those cards, and I was like, he's going to talk about there being a Morbius card. I'm going to have no idea what he's talking about, despite the fact that this was objectively mine, and then you enjoyed it.
I truly wish I still had it because it's just fun to flip through and read the back of the trading cards. Yeah.
But you just described that card, and I like remember it. It's like it had like a white border and like purple as sort of the accent.
Yeah,
color.
purple, and it was like a dark blue, like hiding above in the shadows.
I totally remember that, and I did like as you were talking about it, I was like, there was a Morbius card in there.
Yeah,
like how weird. I knew of him like casually tossed off as like a punchliney name just because the character's name is technically Morbius, the living vampire. Which is just silly. Like it's just a goofy name, and I've heard it tossed around by comic book people as like kind of a jokey thing, just using Morbius, the living vampire. That guy. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But they put this movie out. It gets crushed by critics. Audiences don't like it. They yank it back. They hastily re-edit. Well, I guess not all that hastily because it took about a year. But they to come back out. They re-edit it. They drop it back out in this version, which is the more widely available one. It's on YouTube right now if you'd like to watch it. It's a breezy 80 minutes. I think it's technically under 80 minutes. It's like 79.
No, it's 82. It's just over 80.
The version I watched on YouTube was 1 hour and 19. So maybe we watched slightly different versions.
Oh yeah, never mind. You're right. It is the one on YouTube is hour 19.
Yeah, so it's very, very shortened. I honestly would be intrigued to watch the original version. I still don't think I would like it, but I would be intrigued to watch it.
I'm also curious about the Melissa Joan Hart directed one from 2017 with Angelica Houston.
Angelica Houston, yeah.
Great casting choice for that.
Yeah. I mean, how can you go wrong? Angelica Houston's an all-timer for this kind of spooky stuff. The Witches, still scary.
Oh, so good.
But I was thinking, like, even this 80-minute version, like, I'm not going to do it. I have, like, many other things to do with my time. But I think if you just slightly reordered this movie, it would be better.
Reordered
like,
it?
Even if you just took... Yeah, if you took the part where like, later in the movie, we get the flashback to...
What happened
to the daughter. I think if the movie starts with that, and then it's like, boom, 30 years later... and this new family comes in, this movie is way more interesting for the audience. Like, you know a little bit more of the characters, if that's the case.
Okay.
And you know, like, the core of the mystery that we're trying to solve. And if you wouldn't know anything, like, you don't need to know about the eclipse. You don't need to know about, like, all the, like, mumbo jumbo. Just, like, they did this thing and the girl disappeared and they never saw her again.
See, I kind of liked the mystery element of it, of, like, well, what happened? Because, frankly, I will say this, I don't say it often, this movie could have been longer. Like,
yeah, no, I agree.
The bones are there for a really interesting story, and like it's well, I mean, for what we have, it's well paced. But like it feels choppy because there's so little there.
Right.
But everything kind of flows nicely, and the bones are there, and the story is kind of spooky, and all the actors are pretty good. So it's like...
It's well directed, too. There's lots of cool shots.
Yeah, it's like
lots of them.
What happened? Like, is the book super thin? Like, is the book like a thin little, like, 100-page thing that they were like, oops?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Also, do you know if the ending is from the book? Is the, like... I won't spoil it now because it is too buck wild to give off the top. Do you know if the like grand reveal is actually from the book?
I think that I did not even click the Wikipedia, but my guess would be that the like what happened to the girl is the same from the original source material would be my guess. But I don't know the answer. I should have looked it up. Normally I read the Wikipedia. I got down the rabbit hole of like specific information about the production of this movie.
Yeah, I did too.
Get to that part. So I didn't get it, but maybe we can pull it up as we go along here. We start with a secluded house in the woods. Always a good sign.
And Kyle Richards is in this movie.
Yes, who was in Halloween and
World's
now a Real Housewife.
Best fucking agent. Because
for sure.
Because I was like, oh, cool. If everyone from the old ones is dying, and I was like, and then they showed her at the end in a wheelchair, and I was like, you bitch, you have the best agent to be like, yeah, no, I'm not dying. I'll come back.
Oh, she survives at the end.
She does.
Of Halloween?
Tommy Doyle dies. Nurse Crane dies, and then she survives. And I was like, okay. I mean, I'm not mad because you're Kyle Richards, but like, how did you do that?
I mean, it does feel appropriate that the nurse, like, I thought it was like fine that she was there in the movie, but I was like kind of incredulous at the fact that this nurse is still like running around this movie. Not as incredulous as the fact that the father of what's the guy's name? He's the sheriff in the movie.
Oh, Loomis. Nope. Brackett.
That's not it. Brackett. Like the fact that like
one good scare.
Yes. One good scare was atrocious, but it's also frankly like an indictment of the American life, I guess, that this man is still working as a security guard at a hospital, and he's like, what, 85 years old or something? It's like, let this man just like sit on his porch.
Well, I took that as sort of a like when people retire and get a job at like Disney, or like they do something just to like keep them occupied.
I guess. The security guard at a hospital seems a lot bigger than the thing you're describing of like gently
in the small town of Haddonfield where nothing bad ever happens.
I mean, I guess it just like people have seizures and people like yell at hospital administrators. Like that happens in small towns. Yeah. Okay, I just quickly skimmed the Wikipedia. They describe the Watcher
in the way the movie does.
Like the movie one is different. This one seems more like a witch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I'm not going to read this whole thing. But it's definitely a book for kids. It's 229 pages.
Okay.
So the Watcher is a physical being in the book. I will say. I don't think it looks like it does in this, which is buck wild. But again, we'll get there. So yeah, we have a really nice like handheld POV to show the family arriving, like the sort of creepy you're being observed thing, which is cool and effective.
In this era of filmmaking, it always takes me like a minute to be like, am I supposed to be POV right now? Or is this just is this just, a handy cam? or Steadicam.
Yeah.
And then
not so
and then you have to wait for it to like move. Like, oh, that's probably supposed to be. I think we're people. I think we're a POV right now.
Yeah. Honestly, parts of this movie really made me think like, oh, it's Evil Dead Jr.
Mm-hmm. Evil Dead-y, a little Jaws-y.
Yeah. But I just, the idea of like a Muppet Babies version of Evil Dead is really making me giggle while watching this. So they go to this gigantic mansion in the middle of nowhere, and it's very cheap. And it's like, okay, guys, rule number one: if your house is too big and too nice and too cheap, there's something wrong. Run away.
Although I will say that the realtor is like, hey, it's the woman who owns this like just needs money, so like that's why it's so cheap, because it's whatever. But also she only rents to the right kind of tenant, and I was like, I think you mean the white kind of tenant. If we're
yes, exactly.
Maybe not Bette Davis, because Bette Davis was a very staunch anti-racist person, but like.
But also, it's like, oh yes, there's a small house adjacent to the big house where she lives and can observe you. Like, okay, second point against.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. Even if it was Bette Davis, I still be like, I don't think I can live here.
Yeah, exactly. This house reminded me a lot of The Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah, it was Hill Housey.
But then in looking into the production, the house where the other guy lives, whose name I just forgot,
Keller,
the one who's reluctant to help later.
Keller, I think.
Yeah, his house was actually used for a production adapting The Haunting. The original.
Was it
the book?
The one with Catherine Zeta-Jones?
I think it's older than that. I think it's like a '60s movie.
Oh, okay.
The Haunting has been made. I'm sure you're aware. It's been adapted.
I also can never remember if Catherine, because there was the House on Haunted Hill and the Haunting of Hill House both got remade in the like early aughts, late 90s, and I can never remember which one Catherine Zeta-Jones was in. Yes.
I think Zeta-Jones is in the Hill House one because I just watched the other one. And
I think so.
Not in it as far as I remember. Yeah. So we got Bette Davis in this adjacent house. We see her there in like, full crazy old lady hair, like really
real wispy.
Yeah, a real Doc Brown energy. And I don't know if you saw this, but there's later some flashbacks where they have this character played in the younger version. They just cast a different actress, but originally Bette Davis wanted to do it
because of course she did. Like, that's Bette Davis. If there's an opportunity to do that, I want to do it.
So they're like, all right, they get the makeup team and the hair team, and they try to make Bette look as old as she can.
They flew in her makeup team and hair team from L.A. Like, it wasn't like they got local. They flew in her team from L.A. And did test shots.
And they like screened the footage, and the director telling this anecdote it's really amazing. He like dismissed the crew, so it's just him and Bette Davis, and he's like, I'm sure he doesn't say this, but like in the subtext of this quote he gives is like very clearly this man's like, how the hell do I tell this to Bette Davis?
Yes.
Like, and he's like, so I just don't think you got it, Bette. And he said she took a big drag on her cigarette and went, "You're goddamn right," which I just love. It like
goddamn
the whole
right.
image of that. It's just beautiful. But yeah, so obviously that didn't work.
Frankly, I'm shocked she wasn't smoking in this movie. Because
it's truly stunning that there's nobody. That's probably a little Disney business, maybe. Although
in Eighti,
smoking Disney stuff. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think they cared in Eighti.
Yeah,
you could still smoke in a hospital in 1980.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because Bette Davis famously like always has a cigarette in her hand. Every talk show interview, everything was her with her cigarette.
So we get this mysterious blue glow in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And the blonde, Jan, the sister who would I can't remember this actress's name. She's got a hyphen first.
Can't either.
But she was a figure skater who got cast in a figure. She like was
in Ice Castles.
Yes. So she played a blind figure skater, but she was somebody who like was probably on the borderline for being like Olympic level. She won like a national amateur championship, not quite Olympic level good enough. So she's like, all right, I'm gonna join.
So she's movie level.
She joined the Ice Capades, which is like entertainment skating, and it's like, man, what a different world that like a touring operation for figure skating was a viable entity that people went and paid money for decades, and that led to her doing that movie. But in this movie, which she was probably making in like 1979, I'm guessing, give or take, she's playing a teenager. Approximately a year later, for a movie that comes out in 1981, I think it's For Your Eyes Only. I might have just gotten the title wrong. She plays a Bond girl who's trying to seduce Bond.
Wait, she's actually a Bond girl?
Yes, a year later.
Wow.
It came out a year after this. Like, she is very young looking. I pulled up the picture of her in James Bond and kind of vaguely remembered it, but I'm like, man, is she, like, even for James Bond, she is young.
Which Bond would that have been?
It's Roger Moore, who we saw the tail end of his career.
Old man Roger Moore?
I mean, it was almost 10 years. Yes, he was old. No disputing. But the Roger Moore movie you watched was almost 10 years later.
Oh, that's fair.
It was like 89, I want to say.
Is that
the one we
Never
did?
Say Never Again? Or is that one?
No, that's Connery.
It's the one with Grace Jones. Yeah.
And Christopher Walken, yes.
I thought that the Ice Castles had a real, like, blonde Shelley Duvall vibes.
Oh, yeah, I could see that. Her character's name is Jan, so we'll go with Jan.
She's the only character whose name I consistently wrote notes about, and it was just like Big Sister or She.
Yeah.
Everything else was either Bette Davis, Kyle Richards.
She's looking at this blue glow, the glass cracks in front of her in this triangle shape, which is used throughout the rest of the movie.
Yeah. And then Bette Davis lurks in.
Really creepily too, like just kind of like oozes into the room.
Mm-hmm. She's good at playing a villain. She did it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But it's sort of like you don't know if it's going to be one of those I'm being weird to protect you or I'm being weird because I want you to like fulfill a prophecy.
Yeah, exactly. And the kids are kind of like, oh, this place is a little creepy. And it's like, yeah, listen to them. They're telling you the truth. Run.
Well, I also love that this is like a manor. This is Bly Manor. This is huge. And we only ever see 3 rooms.
Yeah, very clearly there was a production budget that accomplished only so much.
Because the girls are in adjoining rooms, and then we see a living room, and then the foyer entrance with the staircase, and that's it. Every other room is like, well, just beyond there is the parlor.
Yes, exactly. It's almost like a play.
It's Shakespeare.
So they drive away. And Bette Davis talks to the woods. Is like, she'll be moving in now, and it's like, oh great, what is happening? Is she being sacrificed? Like, is something going to eat her?
And then the realtor lets them know that Bette Davis had a daughter who she said she uses the phrase lost, so you don't know what happened.
It's unusual that someone says that someone lost a daughter, and they mean that in the literal sense, as if she just misplaced her.
Well, I feel like she had a daughter who passed away.
Yes.
But, like, I guess you'd say her daughter was lost.
Yes. But that also is a weird way to phrase that.
Well, if her daughter went missing. Okay, went missing. You're right.
Yeah, like, usually someone is lost in the time frame where they're, like, actively being searched for, and then they are then spoken of in the past tense as if they're no longer with us.
So they're moving in some stuff, because Bette Davis agreed to let them stay. And Shelley Duvall is bringing in a mirror into the living room, and it's this really great, like the effects work because everything is so practical in this movie.
Yeah.
She puts this giant, it's like a giant round mirror with a base that's like 2 cherubs, so it's a standing mirror. She puts it on a thing and knocks over the telephone, and we follow her as she bends over, and like my brain of like, I've watched 8,000 horror movies. I'm like, we're gonna get back up there. I thought Bette Davis is gonna be behind her.
100%. I was like, oh, let me cue up a Bette Davis eyes joke. Like, I'm ready to write it down.
We pan down to follow the person, and then when they come back, she's not in the reflection, but the rest of the room is. Which I was like, that's so much cooler.
Yeah, I thought it was a really cool effect.
Because then they have shots like where they clearly just put like a piece of glass in there and shot from the other side, so it's her reaching out and touching, and you see that like flattening of the fingertips against glass.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's all very cool, very practical, like really nice in-camera stuff. I wrote it down here. So she is the actress who's playing Jan, the older sister, is approximately 21 or 22 years old here. So then she's 22 or 23 when she's trying to seduce Bond.
She really does.
She's a young looking.
She looks like a late teen.
Yeah. This is not a
Riverdale.
Riverdale's a great, more modern example. I was going to say 90210, but yeah, same deal.
Yeah. I genuinely assumed she was just like a real teen.
Yeah, for sure. So then we see the bedroom, and I don't know if you clocked this, but there's no fitted sheet on her bed, which really just like gave me the heebie-jeebies.
So she's sleeping on a mattress under a flat sheet?
It's a flat sheet and then another flat sheet and then a comforter.
I feel like I've seen that before.
But like that flat sheet on the bottom, like if like maybe this is just me as like a mobile sleeper, but I'm like, you're sleeping on a bare mattress. Like that's what you're choosing to do. You're like that thing's moving, and then you got bare mattress. What are we doing here? Chaos reigns in this household.
Well, I think we're just very active sleepers.
Maybe everyone else sleeps like a Dracula, and it's just like, crossed arms on their chest, and they wake up and they haven't moved. I sometimes lately, and I haven't had a nightmare that precipitated this, but in the past week I have woken up 3 times with my arms up over my head as if I was like protecting myself from getting hit.
Wow.
Very strange. Yeah, but not like, I woke up from a nightmare. It's just like I woke up in the morning and my hands were on my head.
Huh.
Yeah, it was very strange.
Wait. I had a creepy nightmare that I thought was sleep paralysis, but the problem is I sleep with an eye mask on, like it's a blackout mask.
Yeah.
So even if I wake up and I'm in sleep paralysis, I can't see anything.
Right.
But so
you have just like a hallucination, basically.
I went to bed first, and I was like, give me good cuddles when you come to bed, Jack. And so I like woke up, and I'm still seeing black, and I feel like a hand. I swear to God, I felt a hand like on my neck, not like a choke, just like a hand was there, and I was like
on the side of your neck.
I was like, oh, it's Jack coming to bed, and then it started moving, and then I felt other hands just kind of like doing the like an up and down.
Yeah, that's the sleep paralysis is what you're describing.
Yeah, and
baby.
I was like freaking out, and then I like was able to like rip off my sleep mask, and I was alone in the room.
As a veteran of it, that is what you're experiencing.
Well, that's the thing, because I didn't know if people had like touching experiences with sleeper. I know typically you see things and you can't move, but I didn't know people felt being touched.
Yeah. If your eyes don't work, you'll hallucinate in a different way. Brains are fun like that.
Okay.
So we pick up a puppy from a neighbor, which is like a wild
from the
choice.
cute boy
like
TM.
Yes. I think his name's Mike. I'm like 90% sure.
I think it's Mike.
But it's like very clearly like, we got to bribe the kids because we made them live here.
Yeah, right. Although they didn't seem too mad about it.
No, the kids, like, it wasn't like, I can't believe you're doing this to me, which is like, I feel like the setup of parents moving the kids to the middle of nowhere is very common for teen horror, which I watch a lot of and read a lot of because I enjoy that.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is the kind of the standard by which all of this is measured. And this one.
I can't believe you made me move here. Max Dennison,
like,
Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very common, trope. Because it's like, you have to get the kids to have a little bit of trauma to like start this, right? Because then that has to play into like why no one believes in. It's like, well, they're already experiencing trauma, and moving is better than my parents died or got divorced. It's just like a better, I think, like a more, a less traumatic opening for your movie.
It is. It's a less traumatic trauma.
Yeah. But the Ellie, the character played by Kyle Richards, starts writing backward and calls the dog rather, Narek, and she's like, oh, that's what the dog's name is. And it's like, okay, I'm sorry. At the point at which my child is writing backward perfectly and spelling things, we're going to all the team of psychiatrists.
So here's the thing: she writes Nerak on the window, and like no one talks about it being a backwards word, and I was like, oh, that's the word Karen backwards.
Very clearly.
I bet Bette Davis's kid is named Karen.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah, and later they talk like, oh, it's Karen backwards, and I was like, well, why didn't anyone say this then? Like,
right. Because we as the audience saw it, because we saw the mom of the puppy, the puppies, the mom of Mike with the puppies saw Karen and like did a freak
There's a
out
crash zoom
back in the house
on the word Karen in the window.
Yeah.
Mike also is like clearly they were like, Tommy from Carrie. That's what the teen girls like. Let's get him.
Yes. Big old mop of curly hair.
Very boyish face.
Yeah. So we go back home. Ellie goes missing. Jan's like on the hunt for her in the woods, trying to track down her and the dog.
And there's a creepy man in the woods.
Yes, there is. But I was going to say, when the kids are with adults, they're usually pretty okay in this movie. But when it's just the two kids coming off each other, it gets very Disney Channel acting, like very big and like over the top dramatics.
I think Jan is more guilty of that than Kyle Richards.
Yes, she is.
Because a lot of like later she talks to Mr. Keller, and I'm like, why are you screaming every line?
The one with Mr. Keller particularly drives me nuts, and we can save it for later. But she like hasn't learned how to change her inflection, just her volume, and it's really annoying.
Yeah, because I actually say Kyle Richards does a really interesting thing that like maybe it wasn't her, maybe it was post production. But when she's speaking as herself, she just sounds like a normal little kid. Her voice is kind of high pitched, but whatever. But when she's in her trance, her voice drops a little bit. It's not like. It's not like an Evil Dead, like, bruh, bruh, bruh. It's just like goes from here to here. And it's something that a human can consciously do. So I don't know if it was post-production or whatever, but I liked that.
It feels like a choice, whether she was coached into it or not. It feels like an affect that she is doing as an actress, even though she's a little kid. Because it's really just like go flatter, which I think people can understand. So we get a strange humming and then a glowing circle in the pond, and then Jan gets zapped into the water by this circle, presumably. And we get one of the most delightful scenes
of the movie. It's insane.
Bette Davis channeling Faye Dunaway from Mommy Dearest, despite that not having happened yet. And she's got this big stick, and she's like jamming it in the water repeatedly. And Jan underwater is doing this like big-eyed blowing out big bubbles. Like very clearly there's an air regulator like right next in her hand probably that you can't see. And it's like, all right, take a breath. Okay, big take. Okay, take a breath. But she's blowing out like huge bubbles and going like, really good. Like she looks like she's terrified.
One of the shots looks like a dummy.
Yes, it does look a little bit like a dummy. When it's just the body, you mean?
Yeah, there's like one shot where I was like, why would they use a dummy for just one shot?
Yeah. But Bette Davis, the like crash zooms and tight close-ups of her as like maniacally jamming.
Well, because she appears out of nowhere. It's just the two girls by the pond. The older sister falls in, and all of a sudden, Bette Davis is there with like a staff a witch would use to stir a cauldron. To push the girl in the water.
If she had like this scene had been followed up by the Jan waking up and Ellie eating like a plate of cookies and it's like a chunk of the house is missing, you'd be like, oh shit. Yeah. Like this is the witch. Yeah.
Clean my oven, please.
Yeah, exactly. But Joe, she wakes up and it's like, oh, she was trying to push you down to save you because you were stuck, which like is probably accurate, but not very helpful in the moment.
Yeah. I mean, but how are you supposed to explain that to a person drowning underwater?
Right.
Basically, there were like downward facing branches and Ice Castles was stuck under them, so she had to be pushed down to free it, to like wiggle away.
Exactly. It's cool looking. It's a well designed, like the thing she's stuck on looks very cool.
It does.
It's a great prop. Yeah. For this next bit, I'm wondering if you could hold on to this for me.
And what is that?
Okay, you've legally touched the shoehorn, which means I'm allowed to put this point in here, even though it doesn't belong. I just like that noted for the record,
Go ahead.
Please. Give the court reporter. This sequence here, I did not know you had seen The Bye-Bye Man, or I would have brought up The Bye-Bye Man when we were talking about Faye Dunaway last week, which is the more obvious place to do it. But this sequence where they like go to Bette Davis's house and she kind of like lays out the plot and what's going on.
This is the flashback scene, right? Or no?
It's her
flashback version of the flashback.
Yes. Yeah. It's not the ring around the rosy bit. But she basically like runs down what happens. And it's almost exactly identical to Faye Dunaway's scene in The Bye-Bye Man, except Faye Dunaway is only this scene and not the rest. Like Bette Davis is in this movie much more than Faye Dunaway is in The Bye-Bye Man. But
God, it's such a stupid fucking title.
It's so dumb, but I watched it not expecting to get much out of it and really enjoyed myself, and so now I'm on like a quest to get other people to watch The Bye-Bye Man. Like,
so you are the movie now.
I am doing The Bye-Bye Man. Yes, much like the movie is like don't think it or say it. I am doing the opposite, and I'm like you should all watch The Bye-Bye Man because it's deeply stupid and really really entertaining. Especially if you watch the uncut version, which is inexplicably has a scene where you see the three actors' butts in front of a train, and then one shot of a sex scene where there's like a big thrust and like it's a back with like a big back muscle thrust for no reason whatsoever, adding nothing to the movie. But there is a scene in that movie where a dummy gets killed by a train, and it's one of the coolest things I've watched in a modern movie, maybe ever. It's like they fully just ran a dummy over with a train. They put a GoPro on. I watched it. I haven't done this in so long, but I got it on DVD from the local library.
Oh.
I'm probably the only person who's ever checked it out. But so I was able to do the thing where you go
They had to
like,
blow the
pause.
dust off it.
Yes. It was like they got the Indiana Jones trinket thing and screwed it on top of the staff and found it.
Well, now I'm picturing it being like, oh, you weren't supposed to check it because of the mythos. You're not supposed to check it out.
Yes. Don't watch it. Don't play it. It's the Bye Bye Man. But I was able to pause it and go like frame by frame forward and watch the dummy get run over by the train. I was howling with delight. It's so good.
It's so dumb. I remember my boyfriend.
It's so stupid.
My boyfriend came in as I was watching it. I was like halfway through, and he was like, "So what's going on?" And I was like, "It's a creature that its power comes from knowing about it. So if you don't say its name or write it, if you don't know it exists, you're safe from it. So they're trying to kill everyone who knows about it to keep everyone safe." And he was like, "It's like a Slender Man?" And I was like, "Yes, they wanted their own Slender Man."
Yes. And they leave it open for a sequel setup, and I'm like, baby, if you make that sequel, The Bye Bye Man 2, I will be in that theater, just so you know. I'm there, baby. So coming to Patreon one day, maybe, the Bye Bye Man episode. Not really. There's no earthly reason for us to do that.
Oh, God,
I
no.
enjoy talking about that movie.
The flashback doesn't even take place in the 80s. The flashback is in the 60s, I think.
Yes. Yeah, it does. Yeah, no, there's no reason to do it. But it's the same, like, they bring in Faye Dunaway, and she does this, like, one sequence. She probably filmed for a day, tops, maybe two. And she kind of, like, spills out exactly what's going on in the movie. And that's sort of what they do here with Bette Davis, which is why I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah.
So she explains Karen's disappearance.
Young Bette Davis is doing a really funny Bette Davis impression.
Yes, she is. And there's a quote I read in the like production research that the actress really didn't want to do it, but she's a big Bette Davis fan, so they kind of talked her into it, and like Bette Davis kind of gave her, obviously she's like, yeah, someone needs to play it. But I just found that such like a funny thing. It's just like, you're doing a Bette Davis impression. Like, obviously you knew what you were doing here. Like, why did you act like you didn't want to do this? Very clearly you wanted to do this. So it's the night of a solar eclipse, and they're in this burned out church. By the way, the mom of the two kids, Jan and Ellie, Mrs. Curtis, still alive, just turned 90.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. She did. I checked out her wiki. I didn't see much that I recognized.
No, she's worked, but not a lot that I've seen either.
Yeah.
So that gives us sort of the background. You know, Karen disappeared on 30 years ago. Nobody's seen her since.
There was a flash of light, not lightning, but like the weird the post-production animation blue light that we've seen.
Yes, the Ghostbusters lightning.
Yeah.
We get our inexplicable dirt bike interlude, which is just like completely out of nowhere. And it's very clearly like, we got to get some action in this movie. So have him do something active.
It's very bizarre. Well, right before that, Mom is saying like, I don't want you hanging out with Bette Davis because she's clearly crazy talking about ghosts and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But so they all go to the local dirt bike race
to support Mike, who they're all like very excited to cheer on, despite the fact that they met him while adopting a puppy, and that was the extent of their interaction.
That's what I mean. Like, this movie just needs a little bulk. Like, give me a scene with her calling Mike or like, yes, honey, Mike's on the phone for you. Like, something.
Or he delivers the groceries for the local store,
yes,
or just like get or he thinks she's cute and he rode his bike over to talk to her. You know, like, I don't care. It doesn't need to be all that important. Just give him another scene.
So Mom is dressed,
or just have him be like, when they're leaving with the puppy, he's like, hey, I don't know if you like dirt bikes, but I'm in a dirt bike race next Saturday. Like, you should come check it out.
That works.
Like, just set like, literally it goes from, I don't want you talking to Bette Davis, crash cut to yeah, it's just crazy.
Mom is dressed like Mrs. Brody from Jaws.
She's 100%.
She's got little cigarette pants and the thing in her hair, the bandana in the hair.
Yes.
But my favorite part, so we're like at like local dirt bike place. It's just people you would expect at like a local race, like whatever. And then we cut to mom and dad, and they're sitting on a picnic blanket, drinking champagne out of coupes. And I was like, sign me up. I love a coupe glass.
I mean, what do you think is in those thermoses on the sidelines of kids' soccer games?
Not champagne.
I mean, I think a mimosa's happening.
I think booze is happening, but like no one's pouring champagne into coupes is what I'm like. That's the energy I want.
You got to keep it hidden. It's got to be in the thermos.
Well, I don't. That's what I don't want. I would be far up on the hill with the coupes, with the glassware.
We get so Lindsay like calls out to Jan. She's like, "Come here," and she gets her to move off this rock. And we get a really nice dirt bike explosion.
Lindsay is her name in Halloween.
Yeah, you're right. Ellie is her name.
Ellie has a premonition.
I 100% wrote down Lindsay. That's very funny. Ellie. It's not a premonition. She says that Narek told her to tell her to move.
I mean, I would file that under premonition. It's not directly. Well, it's an indirect premonition.
It's not a premonition. She's getting instructions from her dog,
who is ostensibly a ghost.
Yeah. But there's a nice this guy has a really horrific, like very clearly injured his vertebrae and neck.
Yeah.
Dirt bike crash, and then his bike goes launching, lands on the rock where she was just standing, and literally explodes. The first of two inexplicable explosions in this movie that I can't get enough of.
They're great explosions. And then I just feel like this would have, it needed a little more clarity, like everything in this movie, because all of a sudden, like we're just like, I needed something to show that like Kyle Richards was looking at her sister and got a vision. She got words. She got instructions. Because we were just kind of looking at her face when all of a sudden she's just like panicked and screaming for her sister. And I was like, well, like, give me a little telephone that like she saw something or she heard something.
Or just give me like a distant, an echoey voice that's like, you must call to Jan. Like do something like that.
Yeah. I feel like they don't react enough to the fact that Jan was just standing on a rock that a bike exploded on. Like, they didn't care about that enough.
No, Jan is even like, yeah, well, that was crazy. Like, what? No, that was way beyond
Whoa,
crazy.
Dude, didn't you see that?
Yeah, I almost died. Like, is she drinking a coupe or 6 of champagne? Is that what's going on? So Jan goes into the woods where this hermit lives, and this is really a huge bummer. Like, this person clearly has some mental health problems, and he's living in the woods in a place that has incomplete walls.
Oh, wait, you're jumping ahead.
Roof. Okay.
Because first, she talks to Mike about what she learned from Bette Davis, and Mike decides to ask his mom about it.
Okay.
And she is like super dodgy.
Right. I have Mike's mom implicated. I thought that came up. I thought these scenes were kind of cross-cut, but okay.
Super dodgy. There's an SNL character that they did once of the girl on SVU who definitely did it. And that's exactly the energy she's giving. She was like, it was just a prank. I don't have to talk about that. That was old news.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It was a prank, okay? We didn't mean it.
So she's very dodgy.
So the girls go out horseback riding with Cutie Mike while their parents go do something.
Hang on, you cannot jump over the giant part of this movie that you just jumped over. As they're going to get on the horses, they tell the parents that they need to pick up peanut butter, and they ask whether they want crunchy or smooth. And this is like a big discussion that needs to happen. I don't know why you're just like running to just...
Because crunchy is the answer.
Flippantly. Obviously, but I said that recently in a different household, and people acted like I had said, oh, I prefer if you take the peanuts and take a big poop on them first.
Wait, people want smooth?
Oh, yeah. It was like, I was a pariah.
I mean, I also only buy like 2-ingredient peanut butter now.
Yeah, ditto.
I don't buy dessert peanut butter.
Versions of that.
Yeah, no, I do buy chunky. I buy the chunky.
Okay.
The chunky Smuckers.
I don't eat enough of it that I care, and my fiance is a smooth person, so I buy what she likes but we also buy the 2-ingredient peanut butter, which is gritty enough for me that I'm like, this is fine.
That's fair.
But the kids I believe want both.
They do. They want one of each.
Yeah. So then they get on the horses.
Yes. I mean, I am a big peanut butter person. I just didn't know that was. I didn't know if that I should push my agenda on the podcast.
Well, get out there and tweet at us. Team Crunchy or Team Smooth.
So yeah, they're horseback riding, and Ice Castles is in this like fabulous country western look. She's in like a red western really shirt with a bolo tie with a handkerchief. And I was like, okay, sure. Yeah. Very Barbie. And so Kyle Richards leaves them alone so they can like talk and flirt or whatever.
And he's like, I talked to my mom and she was like real evasive about the time that she was directly involved with somebody's death. I don't know why, but she just didn't really want to talk about it.
Yeah, I was like, buddy, you need to read some signs.
Yeah.
So something happens to spook the horses, and the girls.
It's the woods themselves.
That's right. He says, "Let's cut home through the woods." And when they get there, it's basically that scene in Beauty and the Beast where they're at the crossroads of like spooky woods or not spooky woods. Yes. But the horses take off in different directions, and Mike decides to go after the little girl because she's a little girl and presumably needs more help.
We're cross-cutting between Ellie on the horse and a truck, and they're very clearly setting up like a Gage and Pet Cemetery situation here.
Oh my God. But then the blue light in the woods saves her and makes the truck explode.
I also love, there's this inexplicable, like, it's clearly the thing they use to make the truck flip over. Like, I've seen the prop and, like, I've seen how they do that in movies. Yeah. It's like it's like a narrow ramp that's aimed to, like, get two of the wheels off the ground to flip the thing over, but they make it look as if it's this like pedestrian bridge to cross some water, but it's really just like a puddle.
Yeah,
like,
it's
very
very small
silly.
Amount of water.
Yeah, and the bridge is like very high, like it climbs up like 6 feet high and then right back down. It's very goofy.
So he saves her, and then Ice Castle's horse takes her to the chapel where everything happened all those years ago, and like bucks her off. So she goes inside because she kind of like recognizes what's going on, and she sees the triangle that she's been seeing everywhere on this coffin that's just like sitting in the middle of whatever.
Yeah.
So she goes up to it, and there's like the creepy guy is lurking again. We see him briefly, and she sees the reflection of the. Is this the first time she's seen her? No, she saw her before with the blindfold on.
She saw her with the blindfold. Also, I wrote down coffin as well, but I think technically it's sarcophagus because it's stone. It's like a permanent. It looks like a more permanent structure in here. I'm just clarifying for those who haven't seen the movie. It's like a more permanent part of the building.
A big stone.
Yeah,
where you would push the top off if you needed to get to the jewels in an old movie.
Exactly.
And they fully throw a wet bird in this girl's face.
Yes. Also, they do 2 jump scares with the bird because first the bird goes from the foot of the coffin sarcophagus thing to the head and she jumps and then it comes out and hits her in the face.
They clearly threw a bird at her face.
Yeah.
And then she kind of like gets scared and runs away. And then we see the creepy man run like a creepy man. He that's a weirdo little run.
Like loping. Yeah. This weird loping gait. It's a pretty good performance by this guy, I would say.
And then she brings Mike in, and he's like, "It was your reflection." And she was like, "No, okay, I know what a reflection is."
They're fighting over this, and then like a stack of chairs crash, a huge windstorm blows up, one of the glass windows shatters, like all these things happen, and Mike's like, "Yeah, I still don't see any sign that this is something weird."
Because then Kyle Richards runs in, and she's like, "What happened?" And he goes, "The wind knocked a window out." And she goes, "There wasn't any wind outside." And he's like,
"Yeah.
I don't know. Guess we'll never figure it out."
It's one of those inside winds.
Yeah. And then we see that there's a circle of stained glass and then another circle like half on it to sort of represent an eclipse.
Mm-hmm. And it takes Jan like an hour to put this together despite, like, I know I'm a 35-year-old man watching a movie ostensibly for children, but I was like, oh, eclipse, right. That makes sense. And she's like, what could 2 circles mean? Like we're playing Blue's Clues or something.
Yeah. So we cut to the creepy man talking to a man we identify as John Keller. They were involved in the incident that made Karen disappear all those years ago. And it's funny because the creepy man is talking to Keller and he goes, "She was looking at the coffin." And he goes, "That's impossible." And I was like, how? It's in the middle of the room.
It's still in there. Yeah, this is not that difficult to conceive of happening.
Also, I can't believe it's only been 30 years because these all look a lot older.
Yeah, well, people lived, like, you see a 50-year-old in 1980 and it looks like a 70-year-old today.
That's fair.
Modern medicine, man.
It's like the Golden Girls.
Yeah. Oh, Golden Girls is genuinely hilarious for it because Bette Davis's character is 55 when the series starts, and I'm like, no, sorry, that's not what a 55-year-old looks like. Like our parents are approaching 70, and they look much better than all of those cast members.
Yeah, I don't remember. Oh, what was it? Something was like, this is the Golden Girls age, and then this movie of older women, this is how old. Oh, you know what? Sex and the City. It was, and just like that. The women in Just Like That, the Sex and the City reboot, are older than the Golden Girls were when the show started, and it's just like
it would not shock me to that seems or like Tom Cruise is like way older than Wilford Brimley in Cocoon, like way older.
Well, he also probably sleeps in formaldehyde.
Yeah, that's
in his race car bed.
Choice. Back to this movie, they do like a Web 1.0 jump scare here. These two men are fighting. I was so ticked off. Like, it's not even like part of the movie where it's a cat. You thought it was something else, and the cat jumps at you. No, it's just like these two men are fighting. So you're paying attention to the scene, and all of a sudden it goes bah! And it's like a spooky haunted house ride at the fair that we had no idea they were going to the fair. It was like inexplicably, it's a black screen with a thing goes like right at the screen.
I was like, that's cheap. That's cheap.
It's like you remember that was like
the maze.
Very early internet. A maze, or like cross your eyes and look at these dots and lean in close to the
car
screen.
Commercial one.
The car commercial.
It was like footage that looked like a car commercial of like a single car driving on like a country road that was windy. And it was like, pay attention to the end. Do you see it? And you were like kind of like leaned in, and then like,
yes, okay.
It wasn't the Exorcist face, because that one was popular. They edited it so whatever the creature was like leaned into frame. It was like, bah!
Yes, yeah. Early internet. So we're having fun at the fair. And then inexplicably, they're just like very mean to Kyle Richards. They're in like a fun house looking at the mirrors, and Jan says to Mike, "We should bring Ellie. It might curb her appetite." Okay, one, this is like a 7-year-old.
Yeah, and it's not even established that she eats a lot.
And she's not fat. She's
Yeah.
not even 80s fat. She's not even like when you go back and watch the Goonies and you look at Chunk, you're like, oh, that looks like that looks like honestly like a thin kid these days.
Maybe not thin. It's more of a standard kid.
I mean, kids are way different looking than back then.
Well, yes. But she goes into like a 360 mirror room.
Yeah, this scene is probably my favorite in the whole movie.
The effects are so cool.
Yeah. It's generally a little unsettling and creepy. Like this movie in general is not, but there's a few parts where I'm like, this is pretty effective horror stuff. Like, really unsettling.
Well, I think
honestly, not like this is a silly comparison, but like it kind of reminded me of the mirror stuff in Us. Like, it's really easy to play with mirrors in a way that make you feel off.
It's easy to have that because it shows you what's behind you.
Yeah.
It's like there was one of the Conjuring movies.
Mm-hmm.
It was an amazing version of the jump scare because it was Farmiga in the basement looking at a giant mirror, and there was like the nun was coming up behind her. So she turned around and she wasn't there. So she turned back to the mirror, and then she saw her again. So she turns around real quick and she's not there. And then she turns around to the mirror and the nun's behind her, and you're like, okay, third time, we're going to get her. Whips around, nun's not there. And she kind of like breathes a sigh of relief and turns back to the mirror, and the nun's there. They got you.
Oh, that sounds great.
But she is now, Ice Castles has disappeared from all the mirrors, and it's just the blindfolded spirit. I'm a little curious how they shot that. Like, how do you remove her, because then we get these like cool shots of like multiples of the ghost girl like layered on top of each other at an angle. It's just really cool stuff.
I totally agree. I love this mirror stuff. I think it's really good.
So she gets freaked out and runs away and talks to Mike, and there's obvious ADR because they're at an active fairground. Yeah. So she decides to go to Mr. Keller and just come in hot with "I see ghosts in mirrors," which like ease into that one. That is not an opener.
They get into like a big yelling fight. And this is what I was talking before, where it's like she knows how to adjust the volume of her voice, but she doesn't know how to change her inflection. And it's like the line is, "Mr. Keller, please, I need your help here." And instead she's just like, "Mr. Keller, please, I need your help." And it's like, hit the word with different emphasis, kid.
It's so much yell. Every line is shouted. And it's like, girl, calm, like bring it down, figure out different nuances, because yelling is easy. and it's not effective.
Right. And it's also like one tool. Like it's okay to yell in a scene, but if the only modulation to your voice is yelling, you're bad.
Yes.
More creepy POV here as
they're
Jan
so good. I don't know what it is about this set specifically I wrote. Like, these are really good.
Yeah, it's honestly very similar to like Raimi shots. I don't think it's what it is, but it's very similar. But this is
I think you mean in how much personality there is.
Well, I just mean they're a little wiggly too. Like they follow and there is a lot of personality to them, and they're also like unsteady cam, as it were.
Yeah.
Like they're intentionally not smooth in a way that's off-putting.
Mm-hmm.
But so she goes to visit Tom, who is the third member of the little circle of friends who were there when Karen got lost. And this is like just super depressing. This guy lives in a shack in the woods. It doesn't have 3 walls. I think it has like maybe it has 4 walls, but not like complete walls. Like they're not full big walls. Holes in it. Yeah, this is not a domicile. This is not even a shack. Honestly, I've seen better constructed.
It's a lean-to, essentially.
Yeah, and it's like, the 2 people he was friends with know that he's living like this. Get him some help. Like, he just needs assistance. Obviously, this man is not capable of living on his own. Like, help him. Like, do something.
Yeah. Well, again, if this movie were a little beefier, it might explain what happened to these people since 30 years ago when Karen disappeared. I almost said exploded. When Karen disappeared.
Yeah. Karen did not
explode. Did not explode.
Very different movie.
Like, it could have been like, he turned to alcohol because he couldn't handle what he did, and whatever, like something to explain. Because in any other movie, this is the guy who would die first when the creature comes after the people who did it in the 30 years ago.
Yes, yeah, you're exactly right. But he seems like there's a jump scare here with a cat, which is like I'm fine with. Like it's not the aggressively bad one from before, but he's like nursing this cat back to health, and he thinks that Karen or Jan is Karen as a ghost, and he's like wants to touch her and confirm that she's corporeal, which is crazy. But he's like nursing a bird back to health and a cat, and he seems to be a nice man. He's just living in a shack.
Well, then, I mean, he does at one point. Karen like looks up and sees that he has like dead mice nailed by their tails, and he's like, when I find them dead,
I thought they were on strings.
I thought they were, maybe they were, but they were hung by their tail.
Okay.
And he was like, I bury them when I find them dead. Because he was like, he basically was talking about how like when poachers hurt the rabbits or the cats or whatever, he nurses them back to health and lets them go. And he goes, when I find them dead, I bury them. And I was like, okay, but why is there a step of hanging them up by their tail between finding them? Like, why do you bring them home? Couldn't you bury them there?
Yeah.
Or maybe even if you have your own little plot of land, a specific plot where you're like, these are all the dead animals. Like, it feels like
I thought he was feeding them to the cat, which would make sense.
He says he buries them.
No, I know he does. So, but he loves animals. So in movie language, that means he's like an okay person.
Yeah.
And
except Jan tries to this poor live bird keeps getting manhandled back and forth, and it clearly doesn't like it.
No. Well, this is before we cared about animals on screen.
Yeah. But crows remember shit. Crows hold grudges.
This crow tracked down Jan years later and pecked out her eyes, maybe.
Yeah.
So Jan's like, all right, like, why was she blindfolded? She's trying to convince him to spill the beans. And Tom runs down the night of disappearance. He explains they were going to do this like ritual at the chapel, and they brought Karen there, and she was blindfolded, and it was like very clearly silly kid stuff, right? Like, that's the part that I wanted more explanation for, because this is kind of set up that it's like a sinister thing, like the kids are doing black magic, but I don't think that's what the movie wants you to like. Is the truth of the movie.
That's why I was confused, because they're like, we blindfolded her so she wouldn't know where the clubhouse was. But I guess everyone knows where this chapel is, so like whatever.
Yeah.
And they're like, he's basically, the leader, Keller, is basically, sounds like he's performing a spell. He's like,
yes,
you won't break our circle, and like, we're going to ask the spirits if you're worthy of our club, whatever. And so like, everything about it sounds very mystical and magical and feels very mystical. And then as they're doing their ceremony, and they're like, we're asking if you're worthy, the blue light splat, like crack happens, and the church catches on fire at the top, and they all run away. And I was like, so this is your first time having anything magical happen?
Right. Because to me, it seemed like when little kids do like, oaths and chants of secret friendship stuff.
Yeah.
Is like
the Egypt game.
Not. Yeah. And not what this is, which is like conjuring black magic, like that Clint Howard movie we just did.
Oh, God.
It's very, very strange. And Tom is the last one out, and he sort of looks back and he sees that Karen has disappeared, and then the church bell falls and lands where she was standing. And so later, when they can't find the body, he's like, yeah, she disappeared before the bell fell. And everyone's like, yeah, okay, there's no way out of the building. How could that be true? Mm-hmm. Even Bette Davis says that later, like directly to Jan. She's like, there's no other way out. But like, I don't know. He saw what he saw. What do you want?
So Bette Davis hears Kyle Richards humming a tune, and she like invites her inside to show her this music box that plays that tune.
No, she invites her inside for cakes, which is the number one sign that you're dealing with a witch.
No, she says
tea and cakes.
She says, I have something you want to see first.
I thought she said tea and cakes.
So no, what happens is she says, why don't you come inside? I have something I think you'll want to see. And Kyle Richards says, I was told not to disturb you. And Bette Davis says, you're not disturbing. I was just having tea and cakes.
Okay.
So she shows her this music box that her daughter used to have that plays the same song. And then Ice Castles comes in and is like, Bette Davis, here's what happened. Here's the tea. And then as they're talking, Kyle goes into a trance and is talking about like, open the door, save whatever. And they're like, oh, Karen, how can we help you? And she goes, not Karen. And then Jan goes, well, who are you then? And she says something weird. And then Bette Davis again says, Karen, how can we help you? And Kyle says, not Karen, stupid, stupid, stupid. And then like collapses as the mom comes in.
Yes. Also, we didn't touch on the fact that this music box is deeply creepy. It's got like a weird off-brand Barbie that spins in a circle and it's surrounded by mirrors. It's just very, very strange.
It's not a good look. So mom comes in and she's like, I'm taking you girls away because Bette Davis is doing something. Even though Jan is like, Mom, I didn't hurt. Like, she's not hurt. Like, please understand what's going on. And the mom's like, no, we have to leave.
Honestly, I'm on mom's side at this point. She's seen enough. She's getting her kids the hell out of this place.
But she hasn't seen enough. She hasn't seen shit. She hasn't seen ghosts.
Her daughter, her kids have been acting weird ever since they got here. Now one of them's fainting in an old lady's house. We're going, baby. Get in the car.
Well, it's also pouring rain, like monsoon.
This part is where I wrote down Evil Dead Jr. because this 100% is the part where Ash tries to leave the cabin in Evil Dead 2, I guess we just watched. Yeah.
And the car is like stalling out as they're driving, and then they get onto a bridge and it just stops. And I don't know how Jan knew this was going to happen because she's like, well,
she says if we go back, it'll work.
Yes. Which is not what happens.
Yeah, no. I think she tries at first and it doesn't work.
Because she grabs the keys and like jumps out of the car for some reason. And she's like, we got to get off the bridge. And then, because I was like, I thought Kyle Richards had the premonitions. Mm-hmm. So they all get out of the car and the mom is like, what are you doing? And then they look back and the blue lightning hits the car and the bridge kind of like mini explodes. And catches fire?
First the car catches fire and then the bridge sort of dissolves and falls apart.
And then the car falls and crashes through the bridge.
And blows up at the bottom of the ravine.
Yes, a small ravine.
Delightful. Yeah, but delightful. So apparently in the original version here, like they're back at the house, mom's talking to Jan. In the original version, Jan's babbling about what's going on and the mom slapped her. And the audiences did not like that. And so they changed it to this where she's just like shaking her shoulders really aggressively.
Wow.
And I'm like, it's funny that the audience was probably right there. But it's funny the mom's like, snap out of it. And it's like, lady, you just watched what happened. Your car died out of nowhere. The bridge collapsed and the car exploded. What more evidence
you gotta get
that something weird is happening?
You got to get on board at this point.
Yeah.
And then Kyle Richards Red Rums the same year The Shining comes out. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Although maybe they
also
edited
the
that in.
Is dead.
Huh?
I said also the phone is dead.
Yes. Although maybe they edited that in after, like that was part of the edit they put in that.
Maybe. She doesn't write murder though.
No, she's writing backwards on a mirror, and then there's another mirror that reflects the real words.
Also, I don't know if you caught this, and I'm sure it's just the brand, but when Jan is going to like investigate Ellie, her pajamas say night shift on
Yeah, that was weird.
I just thought like such a funny like, oh, I'm going to work the night shift as a euphemism for going to bed is funny to me. We get this like completely nonsensical thing the next morning. Like she snaps Ellie out of it by mistake. She's trying to ask her questions and accidentally she wakes her up, and so she's not helpful. But the next morning,
you got to be
Ellie.
As my boyfriend talks in his sleep, and I have to be careful about how much I ask him.
Oh,
because sometimes I'll be like, "What?" Because I genuinely think he's talking to me.
Sure, yeah.
And he'll repeat himself, and I'm like, "Oh, you're not there." And then I'll get my phone out to film him so that I can show him later, because they're not always like a logical sentence of words. Sometimes it's like it's words. They're real words,
but it's nonsense. Yeah,
but they're
sentences have no structure,
not in order. And I'm like, I won't remember this, so I have to like gently be like, one more time, and hope he doesn't get like wake up or get mad at me.
But this next part is like delightfully over the top to me, because Jan is talking to Ellie, who is like kind of going about her day. She's looking for, earlier in the movie, she made special glasses to view the eclipse, and she's looking for those. And she keeps saying things that she said last night in a trance. And the way that the movie is illustrating Jan understanding that is kind of like if you ever watch a biopic about an author, when they like don't know how to illustrate, an author having an idea, what they'll do is have someone do the thing in the real world and then like zoom in on the author's eyes as they do like an upturned eyebrow, like,
Yeah.
Like I've not seen it. And obviously we both think she's a trash person, but they made like a direct to Lifetime movie, or probably not Lifetime, probably a British equivalent, about the author of the Harry Potter books. And so there's like a sequence in which this character, the author, watches like people play chess and then is like, and like is imagining the chess pieces fighting each other. And I was just like, what on earth are we talking about? Like, it's just chess. Like, everybody knows what chess is. It's the oldest, probably not the oldest, one of the oldest games on earth. Like, everyone knows what chess is.
Yeah.
What do you mean she had to have a special? It's like, but there's just not a good shorthand for that. So
she sees someone run into a wall at a church.
Yes,
or not a church,
exactly,
at a train station.
Exactly, yes. That's almost surely what's in the movie. But so in this sequence, it's like Jan talking to Ellie, and she's like, hurry up, there's not much time left. And it's like crash zoom onto Jan's eyes real big and wide of like, she said that last night. She said that last night. She said that last night. I just was laughing my butt off at this stuff.
Well, then later, so like 2 seconds later, Jan is on her. She's like, tell mom I'm going back to sleep. And I was like, that's weird. That's not a good lie. Yeah. And she gets on her bike and she tells Bette Davis, she's like, I'm going to get the 3 people who were there before to do the ritual around me because there's an eclipse today. And I was like, but why? Like, what is your end game here?
Right. Yeah. And that's what I was saying is like, if you reorder this movie a little bit to like set it up so that she learns this information and is like trying to like solve the, like, maybe she talks, instead of having her talk to Tom last and learn what happened, like maybe she talks to Tom first, and then it's like Bette Davis knows some of the rituals or something like that, and is like, oh, if we recreate the ritual, like just there's a little bit more, I think, if you change this up a little bit. But anyway,
because
I was trying to get the band back.
I just was like, what do you hope to accomplish from this, and why do you think you will accomplish anything from this?
Yeah. And also in the sequence you're talking about where she goes to tell Bette Davis what's up, Bette Davis seems to know more than she lets on, which is weird to me. Like, it never pays off in the movie.
Kind of.
But
yeah.
She's playing it like she has a secret.
Because she says, also Bette Davis is like, don't do it. If this made my daughter disappear, then like, what makes you think you won't disappear? And she's like, I don't know. I have to try.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, well, why? You don't know this girl? Like, this is not your problem. Why are you dealing with it? So she gets Tom, who goes pretty willingly, and then they're like kind of frantic, oh my God, the eclipse is coming, and then suddenly the whole gang arrives.
Yeah. She convinces Keller to do it with more screaming. And it's intercut between them in the chapel and Kyle Richards chasing her dog in the woods. And this is where all of a sudden Keller seems evil.
Yes.
And I was confused.
He seems like a witch or a warlock doing a spell here.
Because she was like, I need you to repeat exactly what you said to her, but I'm Karen. Just talk to me like I'm Karen. And then Mike says, like, well, if she's going to get hurt, I'm going to break that circle. And he turns to me and he goes, you mustn't. Stand away. And I was like, hold up. You didn't want to be here, Keller. So
yeah.
Why the change of heart?
Yeah. And also, Mike, do stay out of it, please.
Yeah, Mike, get out here.
Yeah, you're not helping.
So Kyle Richards is in the woods, and she kind of like there's like this. It's a really cool shot of this like crazy wind whipping the leaves behind her. It kind of looks like in The Happening when people are running from the wind, but like good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very clearly a giant industrial fan that like is on a track and they're like chasing her with it. Yeah, it looks cool though.
And she stops and she hears this voice that we haven't really heard before and kind of like freezes and then like walks like she's in a trance. And so they're performing the ritual, and then all of a sudden Kyle Richards shows up at the church, like walking slowly and talking, not in her own voice, she's being dubbed now. And turns out it's aliens.
Yes.
And I was like, huh?
Yeah, out of nowhere, no explanation, no logic to this whatsoever. And it's not just aliens, it's like dimensional differences.
Interdimension. Yeah, I was like, hold on, because we have 5 minutes left in this movie.
Yes.
And you're going to say it's aliens?
Yeah. And it's like we were doing something on our planet, or I was trying to go home.
I think it was an ET. I think they were here.
Yes. Yeah. And they needed the eclipse to like travel through or something like that, and enabled them to do it.
And for some reason, their doorway was at that exact spot in the church where Karen was standing, so she got in the way, and they switched places.
Yes, and so this alien's been trapped on Earth for forever, basically.
And this is where things started to get very confusing for me, because I was like, okay, so if you are the alien, and you need to switch places with the girl on your home planet, why do you need someone standing in that circle now?
Shouldn't it be a blank space, or shouldn't the alien stand in that space?
Because she starts to lift off the ground. Jan does, as she's like being warped in light, and they're all kind of like holding hands and making the alien grow or whatever. And she's being like lifted off like she's in Close Encounters, and I was like, well, you're gonna have to do another trade. You can't, like, you already did a bad trade. You're trying to go back. What's happening?
Yeah. And Mike like dives through and tackles her out of the beam, which is insane. Like the way that this resolves is goofy as hell.
And then Karen is there as an adult.
Yes.
Which there's
like not quite, like it's hard to tell. Like they have an older person dressed very young and like have done some tweaks. It doesn't look like she's the same age as the other actors.
No.
To me, but like older than she was.
Yeah.
And apparently this is because this was all reshoots.
Well, in the original, she came back as a kid.
Right. Well, in the original, the actress who plays her at the end is the same actress who was her under the blindfold. But here they had to get a different actress because that actress was unavailable. And so they cast somebody older for reasons unknown to him.
Oh. I mean, it works to be like, it's been so long she got older, but...
Yeah. Well, I thought like you either have to have her still be a kid, which sucks. Like there's a lot of problems there, and like you'll never be able to like how could you possibly like make that? We talked about this with Flight of the Navigator, where it's just like this is a problem. Like this won't make any sense to anyone, and like how is this ever going to work? Or you make her the full grown adult, which has its own different set of problems, but also sucks.
You have to figure out which one sucks less. Yeah.
And
then Bette Davis walks into the church and sees her daughter and is like, "It's you, Karen." Cut to credits.
This is all a double except for the part where Betty's in the doorway, because she was like, the director finished his movie. I don't want to be part of this.
I love that.
Yeah. Because they took it away from him to do the alternate edits and stuff they needed to do. I also thought it'd be very funny if instead of this, it was just... Karen comes back and she's just babbling incoherently, like she lost her mind. She was basically in solitary confinement.
That's so bleak.
And she's just like, and it's just like, yeah, that's probably what it would be. She's been blindfolded in an interdimensional hole for 30 years.
So you sent me the clips of the alternate endings.
So there's 2 other endings to the movie.
At least. I've heard there's more.
Okay. These are the only 2 that I saw evidence of online and like anyone documented.
I can't believe they decided to get rid of this terrifying creature at the end.
Yes.
It looks, it looks like the prototype for extraterrestrial alien encounter.
Yeah, it's very xenomorph-like. It's got fly wings that are really unsettling. Fly wings are just creepy in general, I think.
Well, it also has like a bat wings. when it wraps around her at one point?
Yes. Yeah, it has like bat wings for arms, and then to fly it has like little translucent fly wings that are really creepy looking.
Yeah, so basically the alternate ending is that instead of Kyle Richards coming in talking like an adult, it's this horrifying chrome alien creature that like
sort of looks like a Brundlefly too, like the fly with Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, Brundlefly meets Xenomorph meets Alien Encounter. And it like laser blasts Mike because he tries to interfere, and then like everyone's scared because it doesn't. At one point,
horrifying.
At one point in the version that is widely available, they're all three holding hands, and there's a beam of light getting stronger next to Kyle Richards, and the woman in the group is like, no, and like lets her hand go, and I was like, girl, you are in zero danger. Get your shit together.
Yeah.
This version makes a lot more sense that she would be scared and let go.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because in the version we see that is released, it's just like a column of yellow light that's like, it gets interrupted at one point and then it comes back and it's just kind of like floating yellow light.
Yeah. It's just, I'm like, why is that scary?
Right.
But this creature is scared. It like walks up to Jan and like wraps around her. It like envelops her in its leathery little bat wings and floats up and disappears. And then Jan and Karen just appear because the mom comes in.
No. Well,
there's two different ones.
Other planet. Okay.
So this version is.
I thought the alien was only in the one where you see the.
No, it's in both. Sorry. It wraps around her and they disappear, and then Jan and Ellie's mom comes in and is like, "Where are my daughters?" And I was like, "This is dark." And as she's like giving up hope, Jan and Karen show up, and Karen is a kid again, and then it's like, "Oh, it's all over now." And then in the third one, the alien comes in, hits Mike, wraps around her, and then takes her to the planet.
Yes, and it's like this very weird, almost like the movie Metropolis from the
40s?
Decade wrong.
50s?
No, it's older than that. Anyway, the movie Metropolis, the very old movie, Fritz Lang movie, like it's very shiny and like weird shapes,
platformy,
very geometric patterns. Yeah, and they like. The alien like puts her down, lets her walk into the like cube prism prison that is holding Karen, and they hug, and then they transport back to Earth.
It's bonkers.
And both of those alternate versions end with Karen making her way across a field and then to her mom's house, and then they hug on the front lawn and are like reunited and crying and stuff.
Yeah.
But apparently test audiences found this fly to be very silly looking and were laughing at it.
Really?
Which shocks me because I think it's creepy. Yeah,
I think it's really creepy looking.
I thought so too, but apparently test audiences thought this was hilarious.
I mean, maybe it's just the whole alien thing.
Yeah, I mean, the alien thing comes out of absolutely nowhere, makes zero sense. But it's better, like, it's way better than what we get. Honestly, I feel like the ideal version sort of merges.
Because I realize now, I don't think the alien talks in the other versions.
Nope,
so we don't get the explanation of like.
Yes.
You needed both endings.
That's what I was going to say. If you merged it and put the stuff that Ellie says in the alien's mouth and just made it like the alien communicates telepathically or something like that, it would have been like that. To me, makes that much better.
I agree.
Like a little bit of it would technically be voiceover, but it would be dialogue inserted basically to have him like, I'm speaking to you telepathically, and whatever, because it doesn't have a mouth.
Yeah. It might have had a mouth.
I think the fly version is cool as hell. Well, I mean, it wasn't moving and speaking in the movie, so you could have to ADR the dialogue. But I thought it looked cool. Like I thought this was a way more interesting thing, and at least if it's an alien, it makes a little bit of it makes sense. But that version apparently also started with the alien. There's a little girl playing in the woods, not a character in the movie, but just a little girl playing in the woods with a doll. And the alien like sucks her doll away and slams it into a tree and sets it on fire. And then the opening credits start over this melting doll. Like it's like a time elapse shot of this doll melting.
Oh my God.
Yeah, which is just insane. But it did make me think, we have said before on this show, many movies anyway, would be improved with a predator. And it got me thinking,
this might have been better with
Predator. If this was a secret predator, I think it's a better movie if it's a secret predator.
Better with the predator.
Because it could be like, the Predator's got the thing of like, I'm a hunter warrior, like I need to have the same weapons as the
code of ethics.
Yeah, and so the Predator's not hunting these people because it's an accident. Like, your daughter got shipped to my planet, and I needed to return her because that's not safe for her, but I couldn't get back to my home planet, and so I just hunted for survival, but I wasn't here just, like, murdering humans because, that's not what I'm here for.
I like that, actually.
Yeah. And then it goes, to the jungle and fights Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then to Los Angeles for some reason.
Yeah. And, then Karen comes back and she's a warrior.
Yes. Dope as hell. And then that segues into that Predator movie that comes out this year next on Hulu. That's like Predator in the 1600s.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that. I hope it's not filmed in a warehouse in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was, but it would be nice if they actually went to a forest, is all I'm saying.
I agree. Forests are easy.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought the alternate endings were really fascinating with this because it really adds a lot to this movie. It's weird as hell to go aliens here. Don't get me wrong.
Aliens is a bizarre fucking choice.
Yeah, but it being aliens and you never see the alien and it's just beams of light is perhaps the weirdest possible choice.
Yeah.
So what are your final thoughts on Watcher in the Woods?
It's super breezy, so like go for it. It's just like be prepared to sort of feel like you want more.
Yeah, there's not a lot of here. And to coin a phrase, the movie is one of those like just scenes laid out abruptly in the correct order where it's just like boom, 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 boom. Like we're jumping locations, we're doing this character's now talking to that character, boom, now this character's talking to somebody else, which is fine. Like you don't necessarily need that interstitial stuff, but very quickly jumping around. Pretty good performances overall. Bette Davis, shockingly pretty great here. I don't know if this is her last role, but it's got to be close.
It's probably one of her later ones.
Yeah. It's like when I was back to the Bye Bye Man, when I was watching Faye Dunaway there, it's like, man, don't you think about like, is this it? Like, you got to think of like, this could be the final one. Is this the what you wanted the Bye Bye Man in the contention for being the last one?
I wonder if she knew someone for Bye Bye Man because like she's been really particular about her roles lately, Faye Dunaway. Because she's basically was like retreated away from Hollywood after Mommy Dearest and sort of like did her own thing.
I mean, maybe it's like she liked Lee Whannell's other movies. Maybe she's a Sawhead.
Maybe, honestly.
Maybe Faye Dunaway is just a big fan of the Saw movies or something. That's a funny thing to consider. But yeah, I'm sure this is one of the last few for Bette Davis, if not the end. So she still got it. She's still bringing the heat here. She's good in this part. I don't know a ton of Bette Davis, but she's good in this part for sure. But yeah, it's a weird little movie. And especially considering, it was fully released by Disney. It's got the old Buena Vista text.
Yeah.
The screen on.
This might be their only full-length horror venture, self-described horror venture.
It might be. It was part of an attempt they made to like actively court the teen audience because everyone assumed it was for kids, it being for Disney. So
maybe something Wicked would count in that, but
yeah, that's more like fairy tale horror than this. But also this has like a lot of horror, but not full horror. And apparently the director had said that like they had someone on set who was constantly like, nope, tone that down. Nope, tone that down.
Oh,
nope,
like from like a suit.
Yeah, and he was trying to make it creepier and scarier, and they kept being like, nope, pull that back.
Apparently maybe it wasn't him. Someone brought Watcher in the Woods to them and said this could be our Exorcist, and I was like,
oh, interesting.
If that's what you were going for, not quite.
Yeah, not quite it, but I could see where you could see if you really squint, I could see where you could see those connect, like isolated house,
it's good spooky,
whatever. Yeah, you could do worse, but you could easily do better. So I guess consider that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for listening to the show. We are going to be doing the Listener Request Month drawing soonish. Keep an eye on the social medias. It's at Dissect the 80s on Twitter and Dissecting the 80s on Facebook. Keep it tuned there and see when we're going to do that. Don't forget to head over to patreon.com/dissectingthe80s and check out the great extra content we have there. There's a bonus episode coming just for Patreon folks in June that'll be selected by them for the continuation of Listener Request Month. We also just recently put out a full-length episode on E.T. that I think was a lot of fun. And lots of great stuff coming down the pike. So patreon.com/dissectingthe80s. If you sign up for that, you get all of the content we've ever put out there. It's not just, you don't just get the new stuff, you get everything in the past instantly. So more than 20 hours of bonus content to listen to at this point. And at least one video. I think our Footloose show, there's the video version of it if you want to check that out. So patreon.com/dissectingthe80s. And don't forget to leave a review for the show if you haven't done that. Go out and whatever platform you use, leave us a review. We appreciate those very much, and we read them on the air. So if you screenshot that and send it to dissectingthe80s@gmail.com, we will read that on the air. If you review it anywhere but Apple, we'll need to do it that way. Thank you so much for listening. I have been Trip Lano.
I will always be Andrew Lano.
Until Listener Request Month.
Don't you forget about me.
Dissecting the 80s is a Chum Some of This production.